I want to do a pattern along the side of this canoe, and I was looking online on different YouTube videos, different sites, and I found one that I think I liked, and I've got to give credit to a guy doing stuff on YouTube. So this is going to be very much similar to his, with a few minor changes or differences, but I'll show you how I put this together. It's going to encompass a couple of different species of wood and putting it all together. So I'll show you how that works. For this one, I'm going to start with a piece of 1/4-inch mahogany, and then I'm going to butt it up against an 1.5-inch piece of ash, and then we're going to do another strip of mahogany, which is going to go up against a 3/8-inch piece of ash, and then I've got a 2-inch piece of walnut, and then another piece of 3/8-inch ash, and then another 1/4-inch piece of mahogany. So we'll get this all glued up. I'll take it over to the glue table. As a side note, you may or may not have seen this in some of my videos just out of the corner of the screen or something. I have a glue table, but it's up on my ceiling. I've mounted it with a little hoist so that I can bring that down when I want to use it, and it kind of is out of the way when I don't. So I just lower that with the hoist. And it brings it down into place. This glue table I just put together using some scrap pieces of fiberglass that was used on making ladders, but I did like a little, not quite a full half round cutout on either side, which holds these pipe clamps pretty well. And because of the fiberglass, it's pretty lightweight, which allows me to lift it up and keep it up above me.
With the glue table on the floor, I'm able to go ahead and get glue run down each of those strips and then clamp them together. After scraping off the excess and overrun of the glue, I took a 4-inch by 4-inch piece of walnut and then glued them to the top of this piece that I had on the table, and I spaced them about 7 inches apart.
this broadcast for a brief message from Ruger.
What are you doing?
I just sit down and talk to you.
Sit and talk to me.
La 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 la. Bum bum. I. Bum 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 bum. I. It goes down. Mommy is down.
Now back to our regular programming.
Once those blocks were dried in place, I could take it over to my miter saw, and then going just off of one of those corners of the block, I cut a 45-degree angle, and then did that on each of those 4-inch blocks that I had glued on. I then took those pieces over to the bandsaw and trimmed those off, aiming towards the other corner of that walnut block. And then I saved that cut off piece and make a little notch in one end of it there so that a clamp will fit on there when I clamp the two back together. With the pieces cut apart and the notch cut in that one piece for a clamp, I apply some glue so that I can put these pieces back together. You'll also want to be careful here that that notch is not sticking down too far so that when you cut straight across the bottom of that notch gets cut out. After scraping off the excess glue, I take them back over to the planer and I run them through to clean up each of those sides. Using a straight edge, I then mark a line that is continuous across that bottom and then take them over to the table saw. And because that's an offset piece of wood, I have to actually run those through freehand. So you have to be extremely careful doing this. I can then flip those pieces over and then run them through the table saw again using the fence so that I have a clean edge on both sides. Moving back over to the bandsaw, I then place these pieces on edge so that I can run them through and resaw them in half. So that I have two pieces that mirror each other. And then once those are complete, I can then move back over to the planer and smooth out each of those edges, bringing them down to a 1/4 inch thickness. after planing those down to a 1/4 inch thick, I take them back over to the table saw and I rip them into 3/4 inch strips.
With the pattern like that, you just rearrange these slightly so that they're kind of going in opposite directions. And we'll take the next one and kind of do the same thing. And then these are just going to sit on top of each other like that. And I'm going to just put I think 5 of those down each side of the canoe. Okay, on this area here, I decided for the patterns that I was going to make, I'm going to kind of try and put them together first in a long strip. And then once all those are dried and together, then we'll put them on the side of the canoe. But what I've done is I've built a little jig here that just has a lip so that I can kind of pull everything against it, clamp it down, and keep it in place. I've never tried this part before. Hopefully it'll work. I'll kind of keep filming here and show you the process as we go along.
Now, one of the steps in the process that I did not show is I did take each of these patterned strips over to my router table, and I ran that bead and cove on the top and bottom of each one so that they fit together just like all the other strips on the canoe. And all these pieces are just fastened together, brushing on a little bit of glue and using a bunch of clamps just to snug everything into place and pulling them up against that little fence I built. The jig that I built to hold these is only long enough to do about 3 of those patterns, so I have to break it loose once they're dry, slide it down, and then I can get those last 2 pattern pieces in place. The last part of this is just taking an orbital sander and running that up and down each side to smooth everything out and clean them up. In the end, I have about a 17-foot strip with 5 patterns each.
I didn't show this process or this part of it, but I took 4 of the long strips that I had made out of ash, and I ripped them down the middle
and inserted a piece of walnut. And these are going to go on either side of the pattern that I have. So one on top, one on bottom. But I'm just going to, like I did on the pattern pieces, I'm just going to do a sand just to kind of smooth things, even things out before I assemble them and put them on the canoe.